Well, for more, we're joined here in the studio by Maria Paula Carvalho, who is a journalist at our sister radio station and also the author of this book, Brazil, A Path of Reconstruction, A Path Towards Sustainable Growth. Thank you very much indeed for coming to see us.
Thank you.
We just heard from our journalist there that people in the favela where she was reporting are going to be voting in large numbers for Bolsonaro. And I'm wondering, what is the appeal for people living in a favela of a far-right leader?
I would say they are frightened. Brazil has more than 60,000 homicides per year. And also, voters are afraid that the Workers' Party would plunge the economy into recession again. And there is also a huge scandal of corruption in Brazil. Remember the car wash investigation, $2 billion paid in bribes, 50 countries were involved. So it's not just a question of defending Brazil's young democracy and restoring order. Some analysts see in a simplest way that in one side we have Mr. Bolsonaro that would implement a very conservative program, but with social and politics kickbacks, and in the other side the Workers' Party could potentially lead Brazil for a socialist government. It's much more than this. There is this disillusion in Brazil. Remember that in 2001, we were supposed to be one of the biggest economies in the world. We started fighting poverty and inequality. But the difference between 2 decades is striking. We have 13 million people out of jobs in Brazil. Probably those people in the favelas, they are looking for a job and they can't find. And education is another problem in Brazil. So I would say the question today is not why Bolsonaro is winning, but why the Workers' Party was not able to create a Republican front to beat him.
Indeed. And I mean, the thing, just staying with Bolsonaro for a minute, I mean, he's a man who has said he feels a sense of nostalgia and admiration for the years of dictatorship in Brazil. I mean, are you afraid as a Brazilian that democracy in your country could be in peril if indeed Bolsonaro wins?
Not at all. I think I'm quite positive, and I've been studying institutions in Brazil for a while. I think we have a strong democracy. I think institutions are working in Brazil. There seems to be a new attitude. A general alert has been given to primary actors in society: be smart, because institutions are working, and there is a normative framework that applies to everyone without distinction. During the last years, the Brazilian government has created many institutions to fight the irregular use of public money, such as the accounting tribunals. We have a public ministry, which is an investigative body independent of the other branches of government. There is union, and these institutions are working together, and the Supreme Federal Court and independent prosecutors as checks and balances on executive power, as it was envisaged by the 1988 Brazilian Constitution, finally seems to be working. Transparency has become something very important in Brazil. I can give you 3 examples of 3 laws that are changing political landscape in Brazil. Law of clean record, access to public information law, and also fiscal responsibility law. And people are on the streets. Since 2011, the March Against Corruption brought millions of people to the streets. They were not related to any political party. They organized themselves using social media, and they really want to fight corruption in Brazil. So Bolsonaro, even if he wants, he's not going to rule the country alone. He'll have to face the Congress, the Supreme Court, and the fact that 70% of Brazilians say democracy is the best regime of all.
Okay, just briefly, if you will, because we're almost out of time. I mean, we're going to have results in about 12 hours from now. I mean, do you have a hunch? I mean, could Haddad close that gap in the opinion polls to the extent that he'd need to in order to win?
Well, in elections, everything can happen. We have to wait the end of the polls. But even if Haddad or Bolsonaro wins, they will have to deal with deteriorated fundamentals and will have to have reforms done in Brazil. People say Brazil has left the worst behind, inflation is down, and state-controlled firms are now considered well-managed, but there is still a long way to go, like diminishing Brazilian bureaucracy, rooting out patronage, and fighting seriously corruption. This is not happening as we expected yet.
Okay, well, whoever wins has the difficult task of reuniting the country, because it's been a pretty divisive election. Thank you very much indeed for coming in to speak to us. Maria Paula Carvalho, author and journalist, thank you so much.
Thank you for the invitation.